Shalom, everybody. It's Gav. I'm going to give a little talk today about border walls. They seem to be somewhat of a controversial topic. Um, One of the talking points you'll hear in support of building a border wall on the US Mexico border is that it works in other countries, and many people, including President Trump, have used Israel's security barrier as a comparison. Yes, Israel's security barrier works. We completed construction on it. I want to say in 2005, or began construction in 2003 and ended it in 2005, I believe, or correctly. It works, 100%, no doubt about it. There is no reason to think that a border wall on the southern border of the United States would work, one at all, or even as well as our security barrier works. And here's why. Here's why this is such a bad comparison. First things first, what is the security barrier in Israel trying to keep out? And what would a potential border wall along the southern border be trying to keep out? By and large, most people crossing the southern border are not going there to harm anybody. Of course, there are exceptions. Yes, I understand there are MS-13 groups. Yes, I understand there are violent criminals. Yes, I understand there is drug and arms smuggling. I get it. That's not the same as having the direct intent of crossing the border to slaughter people en masse, okay? But you need to understand that from the early 2000s until about 2005, suicide bombings were an almost daily fixture here. They were happening all the time. You were not safe anywhere. You're not safe in restaurants, movie theaters, on buses, in cafes. I was in close proximity when I was much younger to two of them. I remember hearing it and I remember feeling the heat off of one. I was in Jerusalem, on the bus behind ours, actually, as we were pulling away from the station. A suicide bomber exploded. But in response to this, we erected a security barrier, and it cut suicide bombings by almost 100%. There have been only one or two attempted or successful suicide bombings since then. So that's one difference. The people coming across the border of the United States are overwhelmingly not going there to kill Americans. So there is the question of necessity and how much priority needs to be given to the safety argument behind building a border wall. Number two, the American Border Police, Border Patrol agents, are woefully understaffed. There are simply not that many of them. Between the southern border, the different checkpoints and everything, they simply cannot cover the southern border of the United States is one of the longest, if not the longest, land border in the world at this point, between one country and another. It's 1,954 miles. Let's just round up and say 2,000 miles. Building a wall in and of itself does not do anything. The only way these walls work in keeping people out is if they are constantly patrolled, both by physical, personnel, people, and if they're constantly monitored. For example, the security barrier in Israel, which covers a much, much smaller area, it's so successful not because we have a wall. Anybody can get around, over, or under a wall. That's not that difficult. Why it's so successful is because we constantly patrol ours. We have posts intermittently, regularly, constantly watching the wall. We also have drones in the sky constantly watching the wall with thermal imagery. There are electric sensors on the ground that will notify the authorities if someone is approaching the wall, and they'll immediately be dispatched to interdict them, to intercept them. This approach simply will not work on the U.S. southern border. You don't have anywhere near the manpower to patrol the wall. And you also haven't invested very much in the tech that it would take to monitor the wall either. So you could have a wall along your 2,000-mile border with Mexico, and there'd be no one there and most of it, especially in wilderness areas, there would be no one there to actually stop people from simply getting a ladder and going over it, or digging a tunnel under it. I mean, it's really, if you're going to talk about cost effective, you're going to see a $5 billion wall defeated by a $40 ladder from Home Depot. So there's that. Another thing as well, there is no, what makes part of our ability to patrol our wall, quote unquote, only about 3% of it is actually a wall. And it's a wall because in those specific areas, to keep snipers on the other side from shooting into houses and into cars on the other side. Most of our barrier is a chain link fence. But one thing that makes patrolling the barrier so easy in Israel and so thoroughly is we actually have troops on both sides of it. We have troops all over Yehuda v'Shomron, Judah and Samaria, in bases, and we also have the border police inside Israel that are constantly watching and monitoring it. So in order for this to be a valid comparison, the U.S. would have to invade northern Mexico and station troops inside of it in order for it to have anywhere near the effectiveness that Israel's security barrier has. Don't get me wrong. Physical walls and barriers can be a part of an effective border control solution. They absolutely can. They very often are. But again, the U.S. is a unique case because of how large the border is and how uneven the terrain is. I mean, parts of the U.S.-Mexico border, you literally cannot build a barrier on. It can't be done. Either physically it can't be done, or it can't be done due to property reasons, like it would actually cross people's private property, which would be a problem as well. It needs to be multidimensional. For a wall to work, and how it works here in Israel, is whereas suicide bombers or really anybody could just walk across the green line at any time beforehand and just walk into a cafe and blow themselves up, what it does is it forces people on one side to channel to a select few border crossings, so they have to be inspected before they can enter Israel proper. And this is how we've been preventing suicide bombing. Suicide bombers are either intercepted at the border, and in many cases it's created such a deterrent that they don't even bother to try anymore. That's how it works. But again, it makes no sense to have a wall if you can't have people that actually man it. And there's no way you can have enough. I mean, it would take years to recruit and train enough, and a massive budget to recruit and train enough border agents to actually adequately patrol the southern border of the United States. Okay, you think $5 billion was enough just to build the damn thing? Just wait maintaining it and getting people to staff it. So that's why the border wall comparison with Israel simply doesn't work. It doesn't work in a lot of other cases either. People say, oh, well, walls have been used effectively for border security since, the Great Wall of China. Absolutely. The Great Wall of China was very effective for a number of Chinese emperors keeping people out. Here's the thing. Every, few meters, there was a guard post along the Great Wall of China with physical guards watching it. There won't be along the U.S. southern border. You simply don't have enough. It's too great of a stretch of territory. Same thing, people talk about Hadrian's Wall. People are taking this back 2,000 years ago. Yes, Hadrian's Wall was very effective in severing what was then northern Britain, which today is just simply Scotland, basically, from the rest of the British Isles. It was effective because Hadrian put an entire Roman army there to guard it and enforce it. People, I don't know why you would pick such an awful example. People have talked about the Berlin Wall being an effective border wall. Here's what made the Berlin Wall effective. It forced people to run through an open no man's land and try to attempt to climb a wall. And when that happened, East German guards simply shot them trying to climb the wall. That's how the Berlin Wall was effective at keeping people in to a place that they didn't want to be. Not a very good comparison. Not to mention the fact that the area that the Berlin Wall stretched and encircled was minuscule. You could walk it in a very short amount of time. It's nowhere like the U.S. southern border. So, while I do agree that there is a problem with illegal immigration in America that probably does need to be addressed, and you need to reform, border security, what you really need to invest in is not a wall. You don't need a wall. What you need is to invest in more manpower and more high tech. And you need to reform your immigration laws. Do those three things, and you're going to see an enormous decrease in illegal immigration. We need to start injecting some common sense into the discussion about this wall. Thanks for watching. Have a good evening.